Good evening. On behalf of FEMA, the City of Houston, and the project funding partners, the Harris County Flood Control District, TxDOT, and the Memorial Heights Redevelopment Authority, welcome you to tonight's public meeting for the proposed North Canal High Flow Diversion Channel project. Tonight's meeting presentation is meant to provide you with information about where we are in the project process, including the development of an environmental assessment for the proposed project as required by the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, an overview of the proposed project, how you can provide input now and throughout the process, and an outlook to our proposed next steps. To show you the why and the how the proposed project began, we'll begin with a bit of project background. The concept for a new high-flow diversion channel in this area began in the 1980s, and in the mid-2010s, the Flood Control District initiated the precursor to the North Canal Channel design. In early 2018, following Hurricane Harvey, the City of Houston and Harris County received $2.3 billion for disaster relief through the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, or HMGP, and in 2019, the Texas Division of Emergency Management issued a sub-grant to the City of Houston to initiate preliminary engineering and design activities for the proposed North Canal High Flow Diversion Channel. The City of Houston began preliminary engineering and design activities for the North Canal High Flow Diversion Channel in 2021 to evaluate multiple alternatives for reducing major flooding within the study area as well as upstream. The study recommended the development of a wet bottom channel or canal between White Oak Bayou and Buffalo Bayou and the expansion of the White Oak Bayou near Yale Street and Heights Boulevard. A third area, South Canal, located along the south side of Buffalo Bayou, directly underneath the US 59 I-69 interchange, was also evaluated by the city during preliminary engineering and design, but was removed from the proposed project as the ability to construct South Canal is dependent on TxDOT's North Houston Highway Improvement Project, and therefore will be designed and constructed by TxDOT. Final design activities began by the City of Houston in July 2023, and initial coordination among agencies and key stakeholders began in fall 2023. Now, we're here to provide information about where we are in the final design and receive your input. As we touched on earlier, the North Canal project is part of the Federal Emergency Management Agency's, or FEMA's, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. The Texas Division of Emergency Management is the recipient of the HMGP funding, and the City of Houston is the sub-recipient. FEMA is the lead federal agency for the proposed project, and the City of Houston, as the sub-recipient of HMGP funds, is the lead non-federal agency for the proposed project. The city has partnered with the Flood Control District, TxDOT, and the Memorial Heights Redevelopment Authority on behalf of TERS No. 5 to implement the project. In compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, an environmental assessment is being prepared for the proposed project, which includes a public participation component to evaluate the potential environmental and social impacts of the proposed project. Established in 1969, NEPA facilitates informed decisions and citizen involvement in the environmental review process as a proposed project is developed. Additionally, in consideration of the proposed project location, regular coordination with key stakeholders is critical during the final design process. These key stakeholders include the Buffalo Bayou Partnership, the City of Houston Parks and Recreation Department, Houston Downtown Management District, Houston Parks Board, Metropolitan Transit Authority of Harris County, Metro, Union Pacific Railroad, University of Houston Downtown, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Through the HMGP, FEMA provides grants to states and local governments to implement long-term hazard mitigation measures. The purpose of the HMGP is to reduce the loss of life and property due to natural disasters and to enable mitigation measures to be implemented during the recovery from a disaster in a way that reduces or mitigates future disaster losses. For more information on FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, visit fema.gov/grants/mitigation. Let's dive into the NEPA process. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, requires federal agencies to engage in a review process to evaluate the potential environmental and social impacts of a proposed action and to involve the public during project development. Analysis under NEPA should be informed by NEPA's policy goals which include assuring a safe and healthy environment for future generations. The NEPA process begins when an agency develops a proposal to address a need to take action. To comply with NEPA, a federal agency, in this case FEMA, requires that an environmental assessment, or EA, be prepared to determine whether an action is a major federal action significantly affecting the quality of the human environment. The EA leads either to a decision to expand to an environmental impact statement, or EIS, or to a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI. Once drafted and finalized, the EA for the proposed project will be an objective, comprehensive document used by agency decision-makers to inform their permitting and other decisions. Any comments submitted tonight or during the EA's public review and comment period will be incorporated into the draft and final EA. Importantly, tonight's public meeting is the first of 3 public meetings planned during the development of the EA for the proposed project. Subsequent public meetings and associated public review and comment periods will be held upon further design and EA development. As we noted just before, the EA for the proposed project is an objective, comprehensive document used by agency decision-makers to inform design, regulatory permitting, and other decisions. An EA is a process used to evaluate the potential environmental impacts of a proposed action or project. The goal of an EA is to determine whether the proposed action would result in significant environmental impacts, necessitating a more detailed EIS, or if a FONSI can be issued. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is a cooperating agency in the preparation of the EA. Other federal and state agencies and the project funding partners are participating agencies in the preparation of the EA. Specific components analyzed in an EA typically include 1. Purpose and need, 2. Alternatives, 3. Affected environment, 4. Environmental consequences, 5. Mitigation measures, 6. Public involvement, and 7. Regulatory compliance. As part of the EA, the project team is identifying and evaluating potential environmental and social impacts that could occur from constructing the proposed project. Areas that are under review include land use and planning, traffic, socioeconomics, water resources, biological resources, cultural resources, and hazardous materials, among others. The proposed project would be designed to avoid or minimize impacts to the greatest extent practicable. Since 2015, the city has experienced multiple major rainstorm disaster declarations due primarily to flooding and related damages. These include the Memorial Day flood in May 2015, Hurricane Patricia in November 2015, the Tax Day flood in April 2016, Hurricane Harvey in August 2017, and Tropical Storm Imelda in October 2019. Between 2001 and 2015, many more major rainstorm-related disaster declarations have included the city, including Tropical Storm Allison in June 2001, Hurricane Rita in September 2005, Tropical Storm Erin in August 2007, and Hurricane Ike in September 2008. Understanding that major storms and associated flooding has become increasingly more frequent, and that there is a growing need for storm mitigation due to increased flooding within the city due to inadequate capacity of existing drainages, the city has continued to take steps towards mitigating for floods and damages that are incurred. The purpose of the proposed project is to reduce the loss of life and property due to flooding in downtown Houston and along White Oak, Little White Oak, and Buffalo Bayous. The project is needed to lower the water surface elevation during flood events in the 3 bayous mentioned above and allow high-volume storm events to better pass the intersection of the bayous in downtown Houston. This would reduce flooding and future flood losses in this area. With the project currently in the final design phase, the project team has built on previous efforts from the preliminary design phase with the refinement of the design planned at 60%, 90%, and 100% design submittals. Some site-specific investigations must also be complete before final design is complete, such as topographic survey, utility investigation, design and relocation, bathymetric survey, geotechnical, environmental site assessment, and cultural resources studies, archaeological investigations, and built environmental surveys. We'll now proceed with an overview of the proposed project as it currently stands in the final design process. The proposed project is being designed to reduce flooding in downtown Houston and upstream areas along White Oak and Buffalo Bayous. It would include two main parts: a channel to manage high water flow and improvements to bridges and channels. Located where White Oak and Buffalo Bayous meet or converge, with an overflow channel to the southeast, the proposed project would improve the ability to move water and lower the water surface elevation during flood events. These improvements would especially benefit areas like I-10 west of downtown Houston. The channel would also allow high-volume storm events to partially bypass the convergence and reduce the 100-year flood risk to downtown Houston along Buffalo, White Oak, and Little White Oak Bayous. The project would also allow for the partial alleviation of flooding in Buffalo Bayou due to the current winding water course, which restricts water flow at the confluence with the White Oak Bayou. The project proposes two primary locations of improvement that can be grouped into three areas. North Canal area improvements include a new, wet bottom, bypass channel, real estate acquisition, demolition, retaining walls, a roadway bridge at North San Jacinto, railroad bridge, utility adjustments, grading for future amenity partner pedestrian access, appropriate landscaping, as well as other erosion control protection and future enhancement of trail connectivity. Yale Heights East area improvements include channel widening and the preservation of existing trail connectivity. Yale Heights West area improvements include channel widening, removal of an abandoned railroad bridge, and the preservation of existing trail connectivity. The overarching project goal is to reduce the long-term risk of future flood losses to residential and business structures at the intersections and upstream of Buffalo and White Oak Bayous. Funding for the program is based on a combination of federal and local cost share, approximately 35% federal and 65% non-federal. The total project cost is currently estimated at $198 million. The South Canal areas, shown at the bottom right of the map, though potentially affected by the North Channel project, is under the TxDOT North Houston Highway Improvement Project, or NHHIP, as a planned reconstruction of I-45 North between downtown Houston and the North Sam Houston Tollway. This component is not part of the proposed North Canal High Flow Diversion Channel project, nor part of this presentation this evening. Depending on the hydrologic and hydraulic modeling for the post-project conditions and resulting analysis of downstream impacts from the project, the possibility exists that a flowage easement may be required to ensure that the overall project functions as designed. The basis for this flowage easement would be to ensure the 100-year storm event can be safely, without flood damage to downstream properties, conveyed via Buffalo Bayou in the post-project condition. It is expected that only small partial segments of private or public properties directly adjacent to the Bayou floodway would be needed for these purposes. A more detailed assessment of proposed flowage easements will be included in future presentations. The major benefit of this project is the reduction of the 100-year flood risk to downtown Houston and along Buffalo, White Oak, and Little White Oak Bayous, and the alleviation of flooding in Buffalo Bayou due to the current winding condition, which restricts flow at the confluence with White Oak Bayou and would reduce flood damage to upstream areas along White Oak, Little White Oak, and Buffalo Bayous. We'll now go into more detail on the proposed project's three improvement areas. Here, you can see a photo of the existing channel at the Yale Heights area view, looking upstream to Yale Street Bridge. Here, you can see the proposed aerial views of the proposed Yale Heights West Improvement area between IH-10 and the intersection of 2nd Street and Heights Boulevards, and the proposed Yale Heights East Improvements area between the Yale Street and Heights Boulevard bridges. This component of the project would include upstream improvements along White Oak Bayou to widen the openings for both the Yale Street and Heights Boulevard bridges, as well as a section of the channel that extends underneath IH-10 further downstream of Heights Boulevard. The proposed channel improvements align with the downstream work of conveying water through the bayous. This component of the project will also remove an abandoned railroad bridge over White Oak Bayou just upstream of the Yale Street Bridge. Here we see, from a perpendicular cross-section view, the proposed channel between the Yale Street Bridge and the Heights Boulevard bridges west. The current shared use path would remain, and the existing ground, shown here in light green, would be excavated for an approximate width of the approximate 136 feet wide completed channel. There would be 2 retaining walls with guardrails on either side and an approximate 16-foot wide proposed channel for typical flow near the center of the channel. Looking upstream, the team would provide for a 15-foot wide path for maintenance to access the channel. Here we see the east cross-section view of the proposed channel between the Yale Street and the Heights Boulevard bridges. The current shared use path would remain, and the existing ground shown would be excavated as a completed channel with an approximate width of 106 feet. There would also be 2 proposed retaining walls on either side with guardrails and a 16-foot wide proposed channel for typical flow. Looking upstream, the team would also provide for a 15-foot wide path for maintenance access to the channel. Here you can see a conceptual 3D rendering of the Yale Heights project area, facing upstream, showing the proposed channel widening, guardrails, updated structure, and retaining walls. Here's a photo of the existing downstream view of Buffalo Bayou and downtown Houston. This is also the proposed North Canal improvement area. On the slide here is an aerial view of the proposed North Canal Channel Diversion Project area. Here is an upstream cross-section view of the proposed North Canal design and improvements. The proposed 185-foot wide channel through San Jacinto Street would have paved maintenance, pedestrian access, and vegetated slopes on either side of the newly constructed bridge columns. There would be concrete walls on either side of the 60-foot wide pilot channel with a varying depth of 3 to 8 feet. These walls would vary in height on the north and south banks from 11 to 18 feet tall and would include guardrails. The project's future amenity partner, Buffalo Bayou Partnership, with SWA as their designer, have included some proposed and conceptual 3D renderings of the North Canal Channel project area, aerial views of the channel widening, and other improvements. Though the conceptual amenities and landscaping improvements shown are not final, your comments and project funding will support any additions to the final project design. To recap what we've covered regarding the North Canal project timeline, we are currently in the design phase, where the project delivery team will continue to request, gather, and document comments from you, the public, and move through design. After final design, the team anticipates construction to begin in the fall of 2026 and is estimated for completion by the winter of 2029. Upon release of the draft EA, a notice of availability and a copy of the draft EA will be posted on the City of Houston Public Works Project website at www.engagehouston.org/North Canal. Again, tonight's public meeting is the first of 3 public meetings planned during the development of the EA for the proposed project. Subsequent public meetings and associated public review and comment periods will be held upon further design and EA development. Public involvement is essential in assessing the environmental and social impacts of the proposed project and improving the quality of environmental decision-making. FEMA and the city are using this meeting to receive citizens' ideas on the potential issues and impacts of the project on the natural and human environment. In addition to these ideas, FEMA and the city seek the public's input on the opportunities that the proposed project may address. All comments received in response to the public meeting will be considered. FEMA and the city encourages full public participation to promote open communication on the issues surrounding the EA for the proposed project. In addition, participation by federal, state, regional, and local agencies and other interested organizations is encouraged. The city will continue to take comments, but for consideration for the next design phase, comments should be submitted within 30 days after the public involvement event. You may contact the City of Houston North Canal Project Delivery Team at any time during the development of the proposed project and EA. However, for your comments to be considered in the development of the draft EA, all comments must be submitted by Thursday, September 5th, 2024. Your input matters, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.